Brace yourself for something fuel-nominal. Unleaded 88 is the clear fuel choice. It's cheaper, cleaner, and greener. And it's grown by Iowa corn farmers. Now that's totally worth the hype. So pump it up with Unleaded 88.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
With your host, Andrew Donaldson. This is Heard Tell.
Welcome back to Heard Tell. Okay, let's go down to Argentina, a country we covered a couple of weeks ago in a big picture. We're going to get a little more granular, get some detail of what is going on down there. New face to the program. Happy to have him. Young Voices contributor, also a contributor with things like Forbes Argentina. He is the project manager of Fundación Libertad. I don't think I said that right, but you can correct me when you get there. Marcos Falcone, great to have you on the program, sir. Thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, Andrew, thank you for the invite. Down here in Argentina, we say Fundación Libertad, which literally just means Liberty Foundation. And That's the oldest classical liberal / libertarian think tank in Argentina. That's where I work, yeah.
Yeah, what he said, fantastic stuff. Really appreciate you having you on. You've got a piece out in Econ Live, and I want to walk through it because it's unusual in American media. Look, American media is very American-centric for obvious reasons, but even more so than other parts of the world, we get real insular. We don't really pay attention to the rest of the world. Some of this Argentine election is breaking through the regular media coverage, though, and some of it's because of the personalities involved. Some of it's because, there's been various news items over the last 10, 15 years. Americans have a bit of an affinity for the country of Argentina, as they should. They've been a good ally for a long time. Lay the foundation of this election before we get into the particulars, though, because some people might just see the pictures or the personalities or the name involved. Lay it out for us so we have a good foundation to understand what we're talking about here.
Okay, so basically we have 3 main candidates in Argentina right now. We just had in early August our primary election. Now we're heading to the general election, which is taking place October 22nd. If no candidate surpasses 45% of the vote or 40% of the vote with a 10-point difference, there's going to be a runoff on November 12th. And the candidate who is leading in the polls is Javier Milei, who is a self-described anarcho-capitalist, a libertarian, who is running for president basically on a platform that Argentina should dollarize its economy because Argentines have chosen the dollar over the Argentine peso in a country which is suffering from chronic inflation. We're having 130% inflation, an annual inflation rate right now. And then we have Patricia Bullrich, who is the former Minister of Security of former President Mauricio Macri. So this is considered a center-right candidate. I would probably say more center than right. And then we have current Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, who is the classical Peronist, so to say, the classical populist that you always get in Argentine elections. And he is, well, at the time there's some discussion on whether it is Bullrich or Massa who is currently on second place, but all polls agree that Javier Milei is running first place right now. And some people even are even asking themselves whether he's not going to win in the first ballot, which would be huge, incredible news, as it was when he came first in the primary in August. Because just to finish up this introduction, this was not expected. Polls were saying that Juntos por el Cambio, which is a coalition of Bullrich, was going to come first. And then there was going to be second place for Sergio Massa, the current government, pro-government coalition. And then in third place, Javier Milei was going to come. This was turned upside down on August 11th. And so ever since, we've been dealing with this incredible change as political scientists and economists and trying to explain what's going to happen.
Yeah, and these, of course, have a lot of nuance and layers to it, especially for a foreign audience that doesn't understand everything about it. Kind of the theme, though, since this happened in August, though, and you touched in it on your piece, and read this entire piece. We're going to link to it in the show notes, especially those links about the poverty line and things like that. A lot of detailed background information you'll want to educate yourself on. But the theme of this really seems to be that there's going to be a change. Are we going to do gradual change or radical change? Is that kind of a fair way to lay this out?
I would say so, yes. Argentina is at a point where economic liberalization is becoming inevitable, just because there are so many regulations, public spending is so high, the budget, the fiscal deficit is so high that the only way out of this crisis is to liberalize, is to reduce public spending, reduce taxes, cut regulations. And right now, the main difference between Milei and Bullrich seems to be just how fast and how exactly you do it. Milei is saying we need to shut down the central bank altogether. Drop the peso, just adopt the dollar, and that will stabilize the economy immediately. And then we'll be able to cut taxes, cut public spending, cut regulations, and grow from there. While Patricia Bullrich is saying we need a central bank, we just need an independent central bank, which we haven't gotten in the past decades, I would say. And we need to cut taxes, regulations, public spending, but we need to do it in a way that makes this change sustainable in the long run, in the future. Because just so to give you a little bit more of context, Bullrich's coalition is likely going to have the largest legislative bloc in Congress. Milei is very new. He is so new that currently in Congress, he holds one seat out of 257, and he only has one ally. And we elect our legislators every 2 years. We elect half of them every 2 years. And so what this means is that Milei is never going to get a majority in the House of Representatives or in the Senate. And so many people on the center and the center right are questioning his ability to actually implement change, for example, via decree, because not all the changes he wants to do can be made through decrees. Whereas Milei is saying, well, you may have, a majority or the first minority, but you don't really want to change. You don't want to go as far as I want to go. So that's basically the economic discussion that we're having right now.
Yeah, and part of that discussion, for folks that aren't familiar with Argentina past Messi and Evita maybe, what's the historical background that got here? I know some of us that really studies these things, we know the background. Just give people 2 or 3 waypoints of the last 30, 40 years of history, because this didn't happen in a vacuum. Because you're talking about changing your whole currency. That's a big deal for any country. That's a massive deal. There is precedent for it. Ecuador did it a while back, worked for a while, and then didn't because of other issues. But when you hear big sweeping changes like that, that happened for a reason. Give people a couple of points. I don't want to condense the entire history down because that's disrespectful, but we do need a background on how we got here, right?
Yeah, so the big problem right now is inflation, basically. And that is a problem that Argentina has had since the 1940s, the late 1940s and the early 1950s, when Juan Domingo Perón, a soldier, came to power and started massively expanding government, and spending way more than the money that the state had. And so that generated inflation through monetary emission. Now, that problem, we've had it for 80 years. The one time when we were able to control it was the 1990s, when we had President Menem pegged the currency. And so that was the time where 1 peso was equal to $1. And he fixed basically the exchange rate for 1 decade, from 1991 until it was no longer possible to keep it that way in 2001. And that was the one time over the last 80 years that Argentina did not suffer from inflation. Now, after 2001, inflation came back. Even when the conditions to hold it down were there, inflation still came back because the government kept expanding. The size of public spending as a percentage of GDP nearly doubled in the past 2 decades. And that has had tremendous, terrible consequences for the economy, because that has meant that taxes have increased too. But not even the increase in taxes is enough for the government to cover this massive amount of spending. And so you have inflation again. Also because nobody wants to lend money to Argentina, because Argentina has a history of defaulting on its own debt. And so the problem is that it is only short-term money that you get at rates that are increasing on a daily basis, I would say, at this point, where we're having 13% inflation only in August. We're waiting for the numbers of September, but in an economy like that, interest rates grow and continue to grow, but they're still not enough. And so the risk that we have right now in Argentina is that the situation sort of spirals out of control, and that becomes the source of a hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is a word that we're hearing in this campaign on a daily basis too. Milei saying that we may be heading to hyperinflation. Bullrich is saying it too. Massa is trying to avoid it as the current minister of economy. But this is the talk that we're hearing in Argentina right now, that if things get bad soon enough, we may have hyperinflation. Nobody wants that. Of course, no, the people don't want that. But it's curious to see that, for example, for Milei, hyperinflation would likely be positive, because then he would be able to solve it, or at least appear as the solver of hyperinflation, and stay in history books like the savior of Argentina. And so the time between now and December 10th, when the new president is going to take over, that is going to be rough. We're going to have to buckle up.
Menards is your electrical headquarters. We carry all the tools and testers you need for any electrical job. Stack up your toolbox with Southwire electrical products today. Right now, save big money on Southwire electrical tools, testers, cable ties, wire, and cable. Shop our huge selection in store at Menards. Ranked #1 in customer satisfaction among home improvement retailers according to J.D. Power. For more information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Save big money at Menards.
Save on O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner. Get 2 cans of O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Yeah, Marcos Falcone joining us. When it comes to Argentina, because we have these big personalities, and we'll talk about Milei in just a second, where are the people at? Because the American audience, we don't do real good with fiscal policy. All those numbers go over our head, and we go chase another flashy object in the news. We've had inflation to a smaller scale over the last year or so, so people are talking about it, but they don't really think about it, I don't think, as far as fiscal policy goes. Where are the people in Argentina? Because we're talking about policy. You're a policy guy. You know well and true, economics is not a sexy, popular thing to talk about. Where are the people at, other than just, is it just raging at the government, or do they have an understanding and an idea of, no, we don't want to do this? Hyperinflation is one of those words that get people attention. Where are they at in this process, do you think?
Well, the great merit of Javier Milei has been to introduce topics like these, like fiscal deficit, like a balanced budget, inflation, in the public mind. Ever since he started appearing on TV, some like 5 years ago, in his very, I don't want to say strange, but like curious way, by shouting at others and screaming on TV and just being histrionic, he has conveyed, the need for a balanced budget, the need for, tamering inflation in a way that nobody else was able to do it previously. But having said that, I do think that the Argentine people are just fed up, basically, with this situation, and not just with the government, because if the public identified only this government as the culprit, then the coalition that represents the previous government, the Macri government, would be, running first, but it is not. So right now, what you have is a feeling of an anti-politics feeling in the Argentine people. People are fed up. People go to the supermarket and they see that on a weekly basis, for example, prices change. But their salaries don't go up the same way that prices do. People just want to end this. Whatever this is, they want it to stop. I'm not going to say that the Argentine people have turned libertarian all of a sudden, because I don't think that's the case. I just think we're lucky that the rage that the people are feeling is going to Milei, because it could have well gone to a far left candidate, for example, and that would have been terribly disastrous for the country. But I don't think that people are turning libertarian. I think people are following Milei because they think that Milei has a solution to the economic problems that Argentina faces.
Yeah, Marcos Falcone joining us. That's really the heart of all this current issue with Milei, though. And that's why it's broken through the coverage in the international press and in the American press. Look, the press gets lazy. They're going to, in America, they're going to compare everybody to Trump. In BBC, they're going to compare him to Boris Johnson. You get a loud, big personality type. He's got that funny haircut. He's loud. He yells. He's riding down the street in a car with a chainsaw. He's doing all that stuff. Is there substance to the sizzle? Is there steak to the sizzle? That's the question the outsiders have. You already brought it up. There's the questions like, if he gets into power, is he going to have a ruling coalition to actually do this stuff? That's the question people have from the media coverage. As you see it, though, what's a fair representation under the antics, which, as you said, it's people fed up. We've seen it before all through history. You can get the rage to get into the power. Can you channel that into something productive? That's kind of the big question and the unknown here, right?
Well, I think Milei's success depends, first on getting elected, which is no certainty. I mean, it is a likely scenario, but we don't have 100% certainty of that. And then I think his success will depend on how on whether he's able to build this coalition that you were talking about. And he has taken steps to already try to secure support, from example, from trade unions. He's trying to get, for example, support from Peronist union leaders. Some of them notoriously corrupt, like the people know they're corrupt. One of them, back in the 90s, once said that, we Argentines, we need to stop stealing for 2 years. And now he's meeting with Milei, and Milei's trying to secure support from him. But why is Milei trying to do that? Because he's likely to attempt changes to labor legislation, for example, that if he has no allies, will not go through, or will be traumatic for the population just because, we'll have demonstrations on the street on a daily basis. and things will become unbearable. So Milei is trying to build this support. I think if he wins the election, then the question will be how exactly does he secure a legislative bloc that is large enough to survive? Because we also have impeachment, for example, here in Argentina. And if the opposition decides that they don't like Milei, they may have the numbers to just remove him from office. And so he's going to have to talk to the rest of the opposition, most likely, the center-right Juntos por el Cambio coalition, which in turn is composed of various parties, some of them which are more classical liberal than others. And the big question right now is, what is Milei going to do with Peronism? Because he is supposed to be an outsider. He is supposed to be an opponent of both Peronism and anti-Peronism. But then we have some indications that candidates who are running on Milei's behalf at the local level, at the state level, are Peronists. And some of them were part of this government. And some of them were part of the coalition that is currently supporting this government. And so nobody knows whether they are going to stay within Milei's coalition or whether they will go back to their origins. And so there are many questions as to whether Milei will be able to accomplish what he wants. And I think that that's going to depend on his skill, which is going, I mean, if he's going to succeed, he's going to have to go back in his own steps, because he has this style, of being confrontational, of not, of trying to not build alliances of any sort. But if he comes to power, he will have to build alliances, because otherwise he's going to be a failure. And his voters will remind him very quickly of that, because nobody wants to wait for anything. With 130% of inflation, the risk of hyperinflation, everybody wants solutions, and they want them now.
Marcos Falcone joining us. Part of this dynamic is not just, how charismatic Milei is. His opponent is part of this story as well. Like you said, this election isn't wrapped up. Anything can happen. But Patricia Bullrich, she has a dynamic working against her, and you bring it up in your piece. Again, read this entire piece. We're going to be linking to it, where the gradual approach she is presenting and advocating for, this is recent memory stuff where they've heard this before in Argentina. They've seen it within the last decade or so, and it did not go well. Now, obviously, that's not all on her. The gradual approach is usually, sounds good on paper, right? But that's a dynamic that's playing against, and it's probably feeding into the charismatic and the over-the-top stuff that Milei's doing a little bit too. Talk about that dynamic a little bit, because that plays into the voters' mindset of, well, I've heard this before. This guy may be a little off kilter and a little crazy, but let's try something here.
Yeah, so between 2015 and 2019, we had Mauricio Macri as president, and he was able to, basically kick Peronism out of power. It had been in power for 12 years, but then he did fail, and that's why Peronism went back to power in 2019. And so it's curious, because Milei actually likes Macri, and he has said that. They usually talk. Apparently, Macri likes Milei too, and he thinks that Milei may be able to accomplish what he was not able to. But then Macri is, of course, he is sort of obliged to support his candidate, his former minister, Patricia Bullrich. But it looks like Patricia Bullrich is not even as economically conservative or classical liberal as Patricia Bullrich. In that way, the change within the Juntos por el Cambio coalition has been for worse. They did not become aware that this gradual approach, of just slowly lowering taxes, slowly lowering public spending, does not work, and that's worrisome. That's worrisome for many voters, but that also just feeds to the narrative that we're hearing more of the same. That we've heard this before, as you say, and we know how that happened. If you do a poll on Mauricio Macri right now, for example, his net image is going to be negative, not positive. People do not have good, memories about his presidency. Of course, the first 2 years, everything went well. But then, after the markets realized that change was not being implemented as fast as he had promised, then things started to go really bad until he was kicked out of office. The dynamics in the rest of the opposition also seem to be benefiting Milei. Not to say, of course, what's going on with the current economy, because the third candidate that we haven't talked about that much so far, Sergio Massa, he's the current Minister of Economy. And he, of course, has a very hard time trying to justify everything that's happening under his own government, basically, because the president, at this point, it's just symbolic. He does nothing. Nobody cares about him. He's not on the news. He's not running for re-election. He's widely unpopular. And so everything has fallen to the Minister of Economy, who, of course, is having a hard time trying to explain why, inflation is at 130%, or why has poverty reached 40%, as it was announced a few weeks ago, or why we have, an informal market for the dollar. Why can't there be just one market? Why does the government need to fix a price, fix the exchange rate, and create all sorts of problems in the economy? So the dynamics, both in the rest of the opposition and within the government, are both benefiting Milei right now.
Marcos Falcone joining us. Let's kind of round it off to where we started here. In Argentina, you spoke of it. This is not a new issue. This isn't like, Venezuela, where they were rich and then got poor again because of the government. This has been an 80-year thing that's gone on. This is multiple generations. You just said it in talking about the candidates there. Everybody's heard there's nothing new that you're going to say in a campaign ad that folks haven't heard at this point, right? Is this more than just win an election and change things? Because nobody probably really believes that. Even if they believe one of these candidates can change things, it's going to be more than one election thing. Is there a societal, cultural, almost a national identity thing that needs to change here to break this cycle? Do you think this is bigger than just the election? No disrespect to the candidates, but even they're saying, Milei's even said in some of his speeches, like, this is not a one election fixed thing. This is going to take a lot. Is that something that also has to be discussed, or the people are discussing, is like, look, we need to kind of re-examine who we are as a country and as a people here, because if you've done it for 80 years, it's just hard to break out of that kind of a rut, is it not?
It is. And I think the big problem for Argentina is that people have grown used to living off of others, and that is just terrible for the country. It has been terrible ever since Perón, and most of the presidents that followed him. The state has grown, public spending has always increased. We have always had fiscal deficits. And the reason why that happens is because the government consistently wants to spend more money than it has. And the reason why that happens is because people demand money out of the state. And so this ends in terrible fiscal crisis, like we experience once at least every 10 years. And so what needs to change is the cultural sort of idea that people have a right of living off of the state. If you analyze today the number of subsidies that exist, the number of handouts, in terms of how many people receive handouts and the amount of money that they get through handouts, it's just through the roof. Right now in Argentina, you could be able to make a living just off of handouts, government handouts. You don't even have to work. When that happens, you have this vicious circle of people just dropping out of the job market because they can get money out of the state, but then the money the state can't really afford that. And so we have inflation, and debt crisis and fiscal crisis in the end. So it is this vicious circle that we need to stop. People need to realize that, if the state does things right, if it just, if it lowers taxes, if it lowers spending, if it sets reasonable rules for everyone to intervene in the market economy, then they can succeed. They can succeed. Then they can succeed by being, of course, entrepreneurs or just launching their ideas to the market. But it can't continue to happen that people think that they have a right to live off of others. That is what is causing this crisis, and that is what needs to change.
Yeah, Marcos Falcone joining us from down in Argentina. Give us a couple things, because we've got a couple weeks for this election. Give us a couple things to watch for in the headlines that might break through. Obviously, Javier Milei, he's going to break through because he's charismatic. You get the Trump comparisons, which aren't a good comparison, but people, it is what it is. He's going to get some press time up here, but what's a couple things folks should watch in the headlines as to what's actually happening down there, both during this election and, like you said, this is a short lead time. The new president comes in December. This is going to go pretty quick. Just give folks something, because they get busy. People forget, like, oh, that's that Argentina story. I need to watch that. Give us a couple nuggets to watch for in the couple coming months.
Well, in the coming months, I would watch for economic indicators, maybe, just to see whether we are actually heading to hyperinflation or not. Of course, I would look for results about 19 days from now, on October, a few weeks from now, on October 22nd. And then I would look for, if Milei wins, the names in his cabinet, because those may indicate the level of support that he gets from the establishment, which so far it does not seem like it's a lot. But if we get a new president, of course, that generates interest, and many people are going to want to join the government just because it's the government. And so there, we should watch out for Milei's judgment in picking cabinet members, for example. And we should also be aware of what he does and how he tries to contact other parties and coalitions in Congress, because that's going to be key for him to just basically stay in office and block any attempts at impeachment. But then also it will be key to passing actual reform, and not just through decrees, which are constitutionally limited to a few areas, and not all of them.
Yeah, Marcos Falcone. Okay, that was all tough, really serious, important stuff. Let me give you an easy one to take the edge off before we let you go. Leo Messi is in America. How's it playing down there, him being in America? Of course, he could do anything he wants to, and people would celebrate it because he's that beloved. But how's the American experiment for Argentine's favorite son going right now down there? How's it playing for those folks down there?
I think it's going great for him. He has been mightily criticized by some left-wing lunatics who demanded that he come here, that he had, and said that he had sold his soul to the devil. But I think just people are just realizing that he's having a great time, and that's awesome. And I think Miami is a great choice for him because it's full of Argentines, to be honest, but there aren't anywhere, so he can, live his life, enjoy the sunshine, play soccer, enjoy his family, and live the American dream, right? Which a lot of Argentines want to live too. That's why we're talking about dollarization after all. So I think people like that Messi is enjoying his last years of soccer up in Miami. Yeah.
And for folks that aren't familiar, Miami's one of those cities that just can handle a big celebrity like him. Like, he can never be completely normal, but he can be more normal in a Miami or an LA because they're used to celebrity. You know, you've already seen the videos. He goes to the supermarket, he goes to Publix and things like that. It's a lot of fun, I'll tell you that. It's fun. Somebody that lived in Europe and has followed, you know, the European game for many years. It's a lot of fun for people to get a little taste of what that's like here in the States. Marcos Falcone, really appreciate it. Again, this piece is on Econ Lib. We're going to link to the whole piece. There's 2 or 3 links in there you really need to click the links to, especially that poverty rate one, because that gets to the heart of a lot of this. Read all that, educate yourself on Argentina. We'll continue to talk about it, my friend. We will definitely have you back, but you got a lot of things going on. Let folks know where they can find you and follow you until we get you back on Heard Tell the next time.
Yes. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you are very welcome to do so. You can find me under the handle Falcone, which is spelled as hyper, only with a Latin Y, and then Falcon at the end. And you'll find me, or just my name, Marcos Falcone. You'll find me on Twitter. I also have a website, marcosfalcone.com.ar, and you will find my latest updates on there.
Yeah, really appreciate your time. Definitely will have you back. We try to stay on top of this. We had talked about Argentina as some of the other elections. There's a lot of elections going on. There's some good ones that aren't, like this one where there's some real, and you got stuff like Ecuador that's really ugly right now. We appreciate your insight as we try to keep a global perspective. Thank you so much, sir. We'll have you back soon.
Bye, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All the music on Heard Tell is provided under a Creative Content license from monstercat.com.
Somos la máquina.
Folks, if you've listened to the Heard Tell program, you've heard our friend Gabriella Hoffman, but you need to make sure you're checking out her podcast, District of Conservation. It's a podcast exploring the nuances of true conservation efforts from D.C. and beyond. From topic discussions to exclusive interviews with conservation and energy newsmakers, Gabriella keeps listeners appraised of the latest news stories while elevating important voices. Listen to the District of Conservation on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are played.
Religion is at the intersection of our 21st century life, even if we don't express a faith. At a time when it seems that religion isn't as prevalent as it once was, it still leaves its mark everywhere. As a pastor, I know that religion isn't something I just do on a Sunday, but it's found in every nook and cranny of my life. Sexuality, politics, social media, the economy, war, nationalism, all have some kind of religious angle to them. And as a communicator, I want to find the stories that can help people understand this part of our society that is so important to so many. Hi, I'm Dennis Sanders, and I'm the host of Church and Main. Church and Main is a podcast about the journey of faith and where it intersects with modern life. I look at faith with a journalist's eye, asking the who, where, what, why, and how religion affects some of the major issues of the day. Join me as we journey together. You can listen to Church and Main podcast at the website churchandmain.org or on your favorite podcast app. I look forward to seeing you.
At Baker's Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Baker's Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Baker's, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details. At Baker's Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Baker's Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Baker's, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.